Nation, what's going on? You're watching the Raiders Report. Fellas, you have a hard time getting hard? Well, guess what? I got a product for you that's going to help you out. Shout out to today's sponsor, RexMD. Go to rexmd.com/chat because we have an amazing product that makes it a little bit easier to, you know what I'm talking about, get it up. That link's going to be available for you guys down in the comments and in the description of today's show. So coming up here on the Raiders Report, Aidan O'Connell, is it time to start him over Jimmy Garoppolo? The amount of Raider fans that have asked me this question, I was like, you know what? We're just going to talk about it on today's show. Will the Las Vegas Raiders cut Nesta Jade Silvera? And then at the very, very end, Josh Jacobs needs to sign his franchise tag. Yes, or is that a no? But let's first kick this thing off here with a little Aidan O'Connell discussion. Hey, man, I get it. I'm all about the hype train for AOC right now. He was incredible in that preseason game up against the San Francisco 49ers. But the question is this, Mitch, is it time to start Aidan O'Connell over Jimmy Garoppolo? As much as I would love to say yes, there's no freaking way that that's going to happen. This is zero just win, babies. Tuck rule, tuck that. And I see it on Twitter, X, whatever the hell you want to call it, Instagram. I've seen articles. It's out there. And the idea is that the Raiders should move on from Jimmy Garoppolo and they should put Aidan O'Connell, the rookie, in as the starting quarterback. No doubt about it. O'Connell looked good, right? He was impressive. He was able to work through his reads. He was able to find open receivers. He was accurate. Even when he was pressured in the pocket, he did all of the right things in that preseason game. That's the difference, though. Preseason. The Raiders with Josh McDaniels are 5-0 in the preseason. What do y'all think about that? I mean, it's a totally different conversation. Jimmy Garoppolo has struggled with injuries in his entire career. Yes. But the way I kind of look at it is, imagine if O'Connell looked that good. What happens if Jimmy Garoppolo looks even better, right? Like, what if we have a certain system now that McDaniels has a quarterback that knows how to run his system, can go out there and execute it? I like what I saw from O'Connell. There's no doubt about it. However, he's not going to start. We got to get that out of our mind right now. The only way O'Connell is going to be starting football games this upcoming season for the Silver and Black is if Garoppolo goes down. The Raiders' plan is to not rush O'Connell's development. Brian Hoyer and Garoppolo have been great mentors to the rookie quarterback, and even though I like O'Connell, I saw the plan that the Raiders put in place, and I'm going to trust that process because of the results that you saw against the Niners in that first preseason game where he went 15 of 18. Should have went, honestly, 17 of 18 because Trey Tucker had 2 drops, 141 yards, a touchdown, and that quarterback rating of 117.8. Now, maybe some of y'all are new to the show, and we got 900 people watching this thing live right now, but the Raiders Report is built on that communication. You and me hanging out at an Oakland tailgate. Chugs and I hanging out at an Oakland bar, a Las Vegas bar, a Los Angeles bar, wherever Raider fans are. If you could pick a starter, though, right now, who would you pick? Would you go with Jimmy Garoppolo? Type JG. Or are you going to roll with Aidan O'Connell? I want you to type AOC. To me, man, I'm going to continue to start Jimmy Garoppolo and let O'Connell learn behind him and Hoyer. The last thing that I want to do is put O'Connell out into the fire and he's not ready to process everything. What I would rather have is O'Connell know the playbook like the back of his hand, know the checks like the back of his hand, and then if his number is eventually called, which I do think his number will be called eventually, whether it's this year or whether it is next year, I want him to be prepared mentally because from what I saw, when he's prepared mentally, that dude looks pretty damn sharp. Coming up next here on the Raiders Report, find out what O'Connell had to say about Garoppolo and about Hoyer and why he's very appreciative of both of those veteran quarterbacks. But again, y'all, today's show is presented by RexMD, and we got 90% off. You're only going to pay $2 per dosage. Hell, when you go to rexmd.com/chat. Fellas, do you sometimes lack confidence in the bedroom? Do you wish that you could have a more fulfilling sex life? Well, you're not alone. That's why we're excited to tell you about RexMD, the online source for men's wellness. RexMD offers an easy and discreet way to get the medication you need for ED without having to visit a doctor's office. With just a few clicks, you can have your medication delivered straight to your door and at a fraction of the cost of traditional pharmacies. RexMD's team of licensed physicians will work with you to find the right treatment plan, and their medication is made in the USA, so you can trust that it's quality. Plus, their customer support team is available 24/7 to answer any questions or concerns you may have. So if you're ready to take control of your sex life and say goodbye to ED, head on over to rexmd.com/chat and start your consultation today. Take advantage of their best deal they've ever offered and save up to 90% off and only pay $2 per dosage with our exclusive link. Go to rexmd.com/chat for this limited time deal. Starter packs of generic Viagra and Cialis are now available for our listeners to get started. That's rexmd.com/chat for up to 90% off. So let's show you now what Aidan O'Connell had to say on his takeaways from Garoppolo and Hoyer. Yeah, when you play sometimes during practice, you might not get a rep of a specific play that you're going to run in the game. So you have to learn through watching somebody else. So I try on every rep to act like I'm in there, to go through it like I'm in there, even if I'm not in there during practice. And like I said, those guys do a good job. They don't have to, but they do. They talk to me, and they don't give me the cold shoulder and just let me figure it out for myself. They slow it down for me when they need to and help me out a lot. So I appreciate them a lot. One of the things that I said when the Raiders signed Brian Hoyer was the reason why they gave him that 2-year deal is he's not going to be the backup to Jimmy Garoppolo. Is he listed as the backup to Jimmy G on the depth chart? Yes. But his main job is to be a player coach. And you've seen McDaniels and Ziegler now really like to incorporate these player coaches to help break things down and be able to translate maybe some of the vernacular to these players. And Hoyer and Garoppolo have done a good job with O'Connell, and it showed in that first preseason game. If you don't already know, subscribe to the world's most entertaining Raiders YouTube channel. At least that's what my mom says. Jeremy Chugs and I, we put a lot of time and effort into this thing, and I know that not every single person can send in a super chat, but you know what you can do? You can hit that subscribe button, and you can tell other Raider fans to join the party, because I can promise you this, there ain't no party like a Raider Nation party. Let's go to the next story here on the Raiders Report, sponsored by RexMD. Nesta Jade Silvera, he's not going to be making the 53-man roster this upcoming season. I'm going to give this one only one just win, baby, and I think that there is a small chance that he doesn't make this. If you see one just win, baby, 25% chance or lower. And the reason why we're talking about this is because The Athletic, which I get it, The Athletic's not the most trusted source right now for Raiders information, but they still put out content. And when they put out content, my job here is to be able to talk about it because I know a lot of Raider fans still look at their content. But The Athletic projected that the silver and black would end up cutting Nesta Jade Silvera, essentially saying that, hey, he's not going to make the 53-man roster, which I did think was a little bit curious because they did draft him in the 7th round of this past draft, and the Raiders will have to make this decision on August 29th at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Why? Because that's when NFL teams have to go from 90 to 53 players. Last season, it was a little bit different where they went from 90 to 85, 85 to 80, 80 all the way down to 53. This year, they went back to the 90 all the way down to the 53. The reason why it's only one just win, baby, is because I can't wrap my mind around the idea of the Raiders not keeping this young man, considering of how good he's looked at OTAs, minicamp, and how great he's looked at training camp, joint practice, and how good he played even in that preseason game. But this is what The Athletic had to say. Silvera has flashed often during camp and is giving himself a chance to make the team. He has arguably been more impressive than Matthew Butler, Neil Farrell Jr., and Byron Young, but their draft pedigree likely makes it too early to cut them loose, and the same goes for Jenkins, who started the first preseason game and made a sack. I think the problem with this statement here from The Athletic is at times I wonder if they even know who they cover, like in terms of a football team, because if McDaniels and Ziegler were willing to move on from Alex Leatherwood, who, I get it, they didn't draft him, but they had that high pedigree, first-round pedigree, they didn't care. They want to put players out there on the field that makes this the best overall team possible. And yes, I see that Jenkins was out there. Adam Butler played well. A lot of good defensive tackles were out there playing. But, let's keep it a buck here, right? Because Nesta Jade Silvera has been extremely good in the running game, and he has outplayed Matthew Butler. It's not close. He has outplayed Neil Farrell Jr. And yeah, he looked a lot better than Byron Young in that first game. Also on top of that, he's got ties to several coaches when he was in Miami, when he was with Arizona State. So not only has he played well, he also has those connections, and they drafted him. So I'm sorry. Something would have to happen to him for them to not make the 53-man roster, or if there was a situation where a big-time defensive tackle said, I want to go to the Raiders. That's the only way that I don't see this young man here making this roster. But I got to know from the nation out there, type your K for keep, or I want you to type your C for cut. Will Nesta Jade Silvera make the Raiders 53-man roster? I'm going to continue to type my K for keep, but I know that there's going to be people out there that type cut, because I don't know how many defensive tackles this team ends up keeping. I do think that they end up keeping 6, but he better make the roster. Let me make that point very clear. If the Raiders are not going to go out and they're not going to spend big at defensive tackle and free agency, which they didn't, and honestly, you look at the way that the market went, and I'm okay with it. However, though, I am much more willing to bet on a rookie, right? The Athletic throws out the name John Jenkins. He's 34 years old, and did he have a sack? Yes, he did. But is this not the team that would rather find a young rookie who has already played well, who you drafted to be a part of your regime, who guys like Max Crosby has spoke nothing but great words about? Why the hell would you not keep him? It makes no sense to me, but that's why I got to do this show, because sometimes people are going to put articles out there that, sorry, they just don't make any sense, which maybe it shouldn't surprise anyone that that's what the Athletic continues to do. All right, our final story here on the show. Josh Jacobs needs to sign the franchise tag. This one is from PFT. This one is from Mike Florio, and I don't say this often, but I agree with Mike Florio. This one's for Just Win babies. Believe it, baby. Jacobs has not... What's a good way to say this? Jacobs, this entire situation has not been an easy one, right? Raider fans deep down believe that Jacobs deserves to be paid. However, the running back market is weird right now, and the Raiders were a 6-11 football team, and I truly believe that the only way you're going to pay a running back is if think that you can go to the playoffs. However, though, in a recent article from PFT, they said Josh Jacobs should take the $10.1 million before it's gone for good. And I agree with the idea that he's not going to get a better offer in free agency, like in a crazy world, because let me get one thing straight here. For whatever reason, Florio thinks that the Raiders are going to rescind the tag. It's just not going to happen. That might make even less sense than cutting Jade Silvera, right? You're not going to let go of the best running back in the NFL, a guy who had over 2,000 total yards. But I do also agree with that if he was on the free agent market right now. I do not forecast the team giving him more than $10.1 million. And as soon as I saw the deals yesterday go down with Ezekiel Elliott and Dalvin Cook, the first thing I thought was, I hope Josh is paying attention here, because with all these running backs getting the money that they are, $10.1 million, the fact that he apparently turned down $12 million, I'll ask you guys right now, would you rather have Ezekiel Elliott on a deal where he makes up to $6 million, or would you rather have Josh Jacobs at $12.1 million? There's a lot of different ways that you can look at it. I might make the argument I'll take a 6.1 Ezekiel Elliott, use that other $6 million, and invest that onto the defensive side of the football. Is Jacobs better than Dalvin Cook and Zeke? Yes, no doubt about it. But this is what Florio had to say on the entire Jacobs situation. He currently can have $10.1 million for 2023 simply by telling the Raiders, I'll take it. With Ezekiel Elliott signing a one-year deal with the Patriots worth up to $6 million, and with Dalvin Cook taking a $7 million base on a one-year deal with the Jets, including up to $1.6 million in incentives, Jacobs should realize he's not going to do any better than what the Raiders are offering. I think one of the biggest problems with a lot of Raider fans out there is it's the idea of, I get that Jacobs deserves to have more money. And I think that the Raiders know that deep down. But they're not going to overpay for a running back when the market is the way that it is. If you're shopping for a car right now, and that car is $20,000, but deep down it's a great car, you're not going to pay an extra $23,000, $24,000 for it. No, you're going to get the value that you want. And that's what the Raiders are doing here. That's what good NFL teams do. They put their emotions aside, and they look at it from a business perspective. Does it suck? Yes, it does. But that is what good NFL teams do. They put the emotions aside. I do not agree with Florio often, but I agree with him on this. I do think that Josh Jacobs needs to sign his franchise tag, but I also want Jacobs to be happy, and I want him to be motivated. So even if he does end up signing the tag, the Raiders can then adjust that contract very similar to what the New York Giants did with Saquon Barkley, give him a few extra incentives, because apparently to Jacobs, that's what's more important, the incentives. Now, here's my question, because this is going to continue to go on and on and on until number 8 signs the dotted line and until number 8 is on the sidelines with the Raiders. Will Jacobs be on the Raiders this upcoming season? Yes or no? Can he sit out? Yes, he can sit out all the way up until Week 10. If he sits out past Week 10, November 14th, well, then he's not going to play the entire season. I know that he doesn't want to sign the franchise tag, but if there's not a better offer out there, he's only going to lose money. So yes or no, will Jacobs be on the Raiders this season? I do think that Jacobs is going to end up getting a deal done. I think that the Raiders are going to end up reaching an agreement with their star running back. Jacobs wants to be a member of this team. Yeah, I've talked to some people close to the Jacobs family that say Josh is very upset with how everything went down, but the Raiders are also a little bit frustrated by how this entire thing is going down. Yes, there are Raiders players that want Jacobs to get his money because they're always going to have his back, but I also know that there's some players out there that are a little bit frustrated with how this entire Jacobs thing is going, and it's starting to cloud the Raiders, which this was supposed to be the offseason. This was supposed to be the season where there was no off-the-field drama. Think about how much drama has been around the Raiders since Jacobs has been a part of that team. I'm not saying it's Jacobs' fault, but since Jacobs was drafted in 2019, there's been more off-the-field drama than actually good shit happening on the field. This was supposed to be the year, and I know several Raiders players are a little bit frustrated with how this whole thing is going down. Now, if you don't know the update, I did talk about this yesterday on the show, and on Sunday during the Raiders and 49ers preseason game, there were some fans who were talking to Dave Ziegler a little bit when Ziegler came over to say hello, and they were basically just like, hey, we got to get a deal done with Jacob. Ziegler, out loud, and you can hear it in a video, said, we'll make it happen. Fans also told Ziegler to put some incentives in there, which I get the idea with Ziegler saying he's going to make it happen. McDaniels and Ziegler have continued to say that they want Jacobs to be a part of this team. I just think it comes down to Jacobs and his team in terms of his agent. They got to get on the same page. I have said before that I think Jacobs should have fired his agent, and I agree with that. Jacobs' agent dropped the ball on this one. However, though, people ask me, all right, well, when is he going to come back? When does he come back to the team? If I'm Jacobs, I got to sit here and say, since he has no leverage, I believe he has to sign that tag before August 29th at 4 p.m. Eastern time. Mitch, why are you going with that time, and why are you going with that date? Well, that's the day that the Raiders have to go from 90 down to 53. If I'm Ziegler and I'm McDaniels, I need to know that we have our star running back that plans on playing with us, because the last thing that I want to do is I don't want to cut a player who's been busting his ass the entire offseason in OTAs, minicamp, training camp, and then he doesn't have an opportunity to chase his career dream because I don't know what you're going to do. I don't want the Raiders to rescind Jacobs' tag, but if there's one organization right now in the NFL where if it came down to that time and they really thought Jacobs was being that petty and that drama filled, they might actually do it. I don't know. Would it surprise you if this organization did it? If there was one organization to do it right now, it would be the Las Vegas Raiders. However, I think Jacobs smartens up. I think his team realizes we got to get this thing done before the cuts go down to the wire. So to me, August 29th, 4 p.m. Eastern time, Josh Jacobs will be a member of the Raiders by that date.